Dan Illman, Matt Bernier for Breeders Cup Focus, taking a look at the leading contenders 2 weeks away from the Breeders Cup Distaff. Let's take a look at the list, ranked in order of Daily Racing Form Southern California analyst Brad Free's preliminary morning line. We have Stellar Wind, who's going to be coming off a gigantic layoff as the 7-2 morning line favorite. Elate, a 3-year-old for Bill Mott, is at 4-1. Forever Unbridled, who has done nothing wrong for Dallas Stewart, third in this race last year, at 5-1. Abel Tasman, just dominant early in this season as a 3-year-old filly, at 6-1. Paradise Woods, immensely talented, got back on the beam last time out for Richard Mandela, who of course won this race last year with Beholder at 6-1. It 'Tis Well for Jerry Hollendorfer at 8-1. And then we've got some long shots: Champagne Room, Romantic Vision, Faithfully for Bob Baffert. It looks like Frankie Dettori will ride the consistent, hard-hitting Mopetism at 30-1. We'll begin the conversation, Matt, with Stellar Wind. We know she has a tremendous amount of talent. We're going to go back to her most recent start, the Clement L. Hirsch. This race at Del Mar, nice to know that she can handle this surface. She takes a nice scalp again with Vale Dory. That's Faithfully on the outside. She's in between with the white stripe on her face. The layoff, I think, for a lot of horses would be a worry. This is a horse, though, and we've seen it the way she's been handled throughout most of her career. She seems to run very well fresh.
Couldn't agree more. Any other horse in this race, I would be terrified of this kind of layoff. Knowing Stellar Wind, this is just what she is. She takes a long time between races. John Sadler knows what's best for her. Give her some time, bring her back fresh. Mile and an eighth, not a problem. Del Mar, not a problem. Doesn't matter if she needs to go a little bit early on. Doesn't matter if she can sit a few lengths off of it. The one thing to keep in mind with Stellar Wind, it's not going to be the sexiest win. She's going to be asked for some run, 3/8 of a mile, maybe even just inside the half mile, but you know she's going to stay on.
Right, as handicappers, racing fans that back her, there's always that moment of uncertainty when Victor's starting to ask her for a little bit of run on the turn, and for a brief second there's no response. But it's sort of like, 1978 olds. You gotta crank it up a little bit, and then it starts rolling, and it eventually purrs like a kitten. Stellar Wind, the 7-2 morning line favorite. Elate for Bill Mott, we've talked about it almost ad nauseum, I would say, where she started her career like she was going to be the next coming for Bill Mott, the next Royal Delta. At the beginning of this season, nothing went right for Elate. Elate has vindicated Mott, and let's just look at this performance against older horses in the Beldame at Belmont. Now, it wasn't a stellar performance, but just watch the way she splits. She's in behind horses. You can tell that the jock has plenty of run. All she needs is a space. There's the space, and in a blink of an eye, it's over.
I thought she was awesome. Now, again, you keep in mind, you look and see who she was running against. She's going to face much, much better horses here this time around in the Breeders' Cup, but my goodness, you couldn't ask for anything more. Let her run a little bit. Jose never really gets out of first gear, but gives her head down the lane. I thought she was fantastic. 4-1, I suppose you could debate that may be a little bit on the light side as far as odds are concerned, but I think she's one of the main contenders.
That race came on the heels of a big performance in the Alabama at Saratoga. Prior effort very good behind Abel Tasman, just missing, I believe, in the coaching club. Let's talk about Forever Unbridled, who's also had a light campaign for Dallas Stewart. She got her big win last time out in the personal ensign at Saratoga. Joel Rosario, I think by design, drifting to the center of the track, doesn't want the classy and talented Songbird to see Forever Unbridled until it's too late. It looks like Forever Unbridled's got a head of steam. While Songbird might not be the same Songbird she was as a 2-year-old and as a 3-year-old, she's still got plenty of class, but Forever Unbridled just better.
I thought it was a brilliant ride from Rosario. Keep her as far away as possible until you get down to the end. Forever Unbridled has been another one of those horses that is just not, I think she's underappreciated, underestimated. She's impressive, she's incredibly talented, and keep in mind, her run in the Distaff last year, boy, any other year, maybe it wins, but unfortunately she ran into Beholder and Songbird.
Let's throw up the list of the leading contenders for the Breeders' Cup Distaff one more time. Jerry Hollendorfer, of course, trained the brilliant Songbird, and he was devastated when Songbird was retired with an injury after finishing second to Forever Unbridled in the personal ensign. Not a bad pinch hitter in It 'Tis Well, who just ran so well last time out in the Grade 1 Cotillion. Seems to be coming into her own at the right time. You get the feeling a horse like her, you better not make a mistake, because she's professional, she's solid. She's not brilliant, but she can get it done in the Distaff.
Absolutely. I agree with everything you've said. But the other thing for me that's at least heartening and nice to think about going forward, we've talked about how last year you had Beholder, who was coming to the end. Songbird was retired. Now you've got some of these other girls in here, Forever Unbridled and Stellar Wind. But now you've got a new wave of 3-year-olds, Illate, Abel Tasman, Paradise Woods, It Is Well. Possibly next year you get Unique Bella going longer again. I just think it's nice to see that it feels like for 3 or 4 or 5 years in a row, this distaff division has been fantastic.
6-1 on the morning line for Abel Tasman, who did not have the easiest of trips, to be sure, in the cotillion, rushing up on the backstretch to get into contention, and then still punching on in the lane, finishing behind It Is Well, who had a better trip. Do you think that Abel Tasman's had too much racing this year, that she's beginning to fall just a bit off form? She's been nothing if not consistent. She took advantage when Paradise Woods and Unique Bella sort of fell by the wayside after the Kentucky Oaks. But boy, this is a very dangerous horse for a very dangerous trainer.
Yeah, I don't think I would underestimate her. I would just strongly recommend people go back and really kind of go through those performances with a fine-tooth comb. Consider the Kentucky Oaks, the pace completely melted
Wet
down.
track, too.
The wet track. The Acorn, she had a really good setup, a really great ride from Mike Smith. And then you look at that run up at Saratoga. I wonder if that was the beginning of Illate continuing to progress and Abel Tasman maybe plateauing a little bit. And then you saw, obviously, in the cotillion, It Is Well got the measure of her, but again, with that kind of wild move
Very
at the backside.
headstrong in her last couple of races, Abel Tasman. It's sort of unlike her. I wonder if they're going to try to keep her a little bit off the pace in the distaff. I don't think it's blasphemous to assume or presume that Paradise Woods is the most naturally talented horse in this race. We saw it in the Santa Anita Oaks, a brilliant performance that made her the fairly heavy favorite in the Kentucky Oaks, where the rain hurt her and just a ridiculously fast pace hurt her, sent her to the sidelines. Now, it's taken her a while to get back, but she got back last time out with a big effort and perhaps more importantly, a big buyer speed figure.
There's a part of me that wonders if she is, I don't want to say the forgotten horse, but boy, people, you're going to have Forever Unbridled, and you're going to have Stellar Wind, and all these big names, Abel Tasman, Illate. Keep in mind, this was a filly that when she was at her absolute best, she put on an absolute show, and she destroyed Abel Tasman out on the racetrack. Now, again, she had an easy lead, a lonely lead, and she had the same thing in that most recent start, the Zenyatta. I wonder if people are going to look at that and say, well, she walked on the front. She can't do that again against Better. There's not a lot of speed in this race. Don't be surprised if she's on a one-way mission. Go to the front and try to bottom this field out. For expanded Breeders' Cup contender lists, updated news over the next 2 weeks, you're going to want to check out our Breeders' Cup pages, drf.com/BC. We'll see you next week on Breeders' Cup Focus.